is about a slightly more complicated example for the person class. So we'll start from scratch. So you can still apply your knowledge from today's lecture. So launch Eclipse, and we're going to create a project for today. So let's go for new Java projects, and then we'll go for CSE114 Spring 16 Week 07 and Lab exercise number 1. Okay, and I'm going to make the source code available after tomorrow's lab. So just in case if you cannot catch up with typing, don't panic. Just focus on understanding the stuff. and for my purpose, I'm going to just create a package for session 1. You don't need to do it. Okay, so now what we will need is a person class. Okay, so that means we're going to define a template for person instances. Okay, once we create the person class, we got to think about a few issues. So let's say person class with no main method. Okay, just define the template. You only need a main method if you want to have some program to manipulate the instances and execute. Okay, but for the person class, no. Okay, so now, whenever you define a class, you got to think about what attributes are common to all the person instances. So every person must have something to share in common. So let's say for this exercise here, I send in the instruction. Let's say each person has, let's say an age. An age can be either 1 or 2 or 3, like an integer. And whenever you have a number, you have to decide either that should be a double or should be an integer. And think about which type will make real sense. If you simply have double, that means you're allowing for 1.5-year-old or 2.5-year-old, which doesn't make sense. So that's why integer makes much more sense. Okay, you have age, and also you have first name, last name, and in this case, string would be appropriate. So you say string and then first name. So remember the naming convention for each variable is for the very first word is going to be all lower cases, and starting from the second word is going to be capitalized, right? And the same convention for methods as well. Okay, and also we have string, last name. And let's say the person also has weights, height, and nationality. And now for the weight and height, let's make some assumption here. Assumption here, let me just put it. Assumptions would be weight is in kilograms and height is in inches. Let's say meters. Meters. So now, because when we talk about kilograms, it can be 54.5. So double number would make more sense. And also, when you talk about meters, it might be 1.72 meters height. So double numbers also makes more sense for the heights. So now we're going to say double weights and double heights. So these are the attributes or class variables as I mentioned in the class. Okay. So now we got the also nationality. String nationality. So now we can do the so that's how the person class will look like. Okay. One thing to note: by default, you do not have to declare any constructor for your class. If you let's say if we just leave the class as is without any explicit constructor, Java is going to provide something by default for you. Okay, so let me just put it here. If we do not explicitly define a constructor for person, there will be a default constructor available. Okay, I'm going to illustrate to you in a moment. Okay, I'll let you type. And then we'll see some tester to see that how we can test the person right away. Okay, so now let's see how we can do a tester. So let's go back to the package explorer, and then we'll do a new class, just called a person tester. So person tester, and then the main method here, We need a main method since we're going to create instances. Okay, so now under the main method here, we're going to create an instance. So you're going to say person, let's say Jim, is assigned to new, using a new keyword for creating a new instance, and person. You can see that this line compiles. First of all, it is using the new keyword and call the constructor of the person class, although we did not explicitly define any person constructor over here, but we could actually write this already. So this is something that Java does for us. Okay, let's see what happens if you do that. So we can do, let's say, let's do the following. Let's say after this, we would like to print out all the information about Jim. So let's say system.out.println. You can say Jim's, let's say this, age, first name, last name, okay. Age is Jim.age. Okay, I'm going to somehow copy this line here to copy the pattern. Okay, how many attributes do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so for Jim's age, Jim's first name, and for that I'm going to save Jim's first name, and Jim's last name, and Jim last name, and Jim's weight, and height, Jim height, and height. Oh, seems like I made a typo from before. Let me just change. I hope you didn't. I actually spelled the height wrongly. Okay, I'm just going to fix that now. Okay, and finally, nationality. Okay, so we got 6 attributes. We just want to know what's their values after we call this default constructor. Okay, that's the point. Everyone follow so far? Okay, let's see what the output is. If you launch the program, okay, since like Jim's age, initially 0, first name null, last name null, weight 0.0, height 0.0, and nationality simply null. Okay, so that's actually what the default constructor does for you. So whenever you simply do not explicitly declare the constructor in your class, the default constructor is going to just keep all the variables assigned to their default values. So we're going to talk about default values later in the class. Okay, so now in the case of the integer, it's just going to assign 0 by default. In the case of the string variable, it's going to assign null. Null is like the string contains number. Okay, this null is also a special word in Java. And in the case of double value, it's going to be 0.0 by default, like nothing. And also, yeah, basically for string, for integer, and for double. So that's what the default constructor does. Simply just give you the default values for the variables. So this doesn't seem to be very useful. So in this case, we do not want to rely on the default constructor. And the only way to actually get rid of that is by defining a constructor by ourselves. Okay, that's what we're going to do. Let me document that for you. Let me go to the person class. We can say, so that's what we said. I would say, however, the default constructor only assigns default values to attributes. For example, 0 to integer attributes, 0.0 to double attributes, and also null to string attributes. Okay, and later on we might also use attributes of type Boolean. In that case, the default value is false. Okay, just happens to be false. And false to Boolean. Okay. So this is the case where we do not explicitly define any of our own constructor. Okay, so now we want to say, if we do not like this default constructor, then we must define our own constructor. Okay, I'll let you type. Maybe I should scroll up a little bit. Also one of the complaints I received, maybe I should make the font size a little bit smaller so you can see more. Maybe the person who wrote the comments here, that person will be very happy. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna adjust the font size. Maybe I'll try, so currently it's quite big. So give me a second. So that should be editor. So why don't I try 14 for now? You know, I want to make sure it's not too small. Is that too small for you? Is that okay? Okay, what about this? Okay, 14. Okay, so you can see more over there. Okay, so that's the job of the comments. So if you cannot see here, so basically, let me read it to you. If we do not like this default constructor, then we must define our own constructor. Okay, and in theory, you can define more than one constructors. But for this exercise, let's just define one constructor. Okay. So now let's say we are going to define a constructor that is going to initialize all the attributes. Okay, we've got 6 attributes here. So that means we need to have 6 parameters for the constructor. Okay, let's see how we can do that. So we defined a constructor that initializes all 6 attributes. Actually, that's free. I wonder if I can improve this. Yeah, it's really hard for you to see from there, right? How can I improve that? I wonder. There's nothing I can move here, actually. Again, let me read it to you. We define a constructor that initializes all 6 attributes, all the attributes. But if you really cannot follow the comments, don't worry, the code is going to be available soon. Okay, let's see how we can define that. There we go. Okay, better? Okay. Let's see how we define the first constructor here. Let's say the constructor, the name has to be exactly the same as the class. So we say person. So now we're going to have 6 parameters to initialize all the attributes. Let me try 1 for you, and let me try 2 for you. You can complete the other 4. Okay, we can complete it together. Let's say we need to. Let's just take in this order. You're going to take an age, first name, last name, weight, height, and nationality. Let's say that's the order. So let's say integer. So we want to avoid the same name as the class, the attribute name. Let's just say n. Let's convention n for new age, and then we have first name, string new first name, and then string new last name. So every time, so you separate it by comma. Every time you have a new parameter, make sure you have the type first and then the name of the parameter. Okay, so we have first name, last name, weight, height, and nationality. Okay, so double new weights, double new heights, and double and not double, string new nationality. Since we've got quite a bit over here, so we can certainly change that to a new line if you like. So let's say we can split to another line here. So now you can see you got 6 parameters over there. And this will be the body of the constructor. Okay? So we're defining a constructor which will take 6 parameters. Each one of them is going to be assigned to the corresponding attributes in the class. Yes? We got an error? Because that has to be the same name as okay. Yeah, just make sure the name of the constructor has to be exactly the same as the class. It's capitalized. Okay, very good. So now we're going to see how we can define the body of the method of the constructor. For example, we're going to say the age of the person is going to be assigned whatever we pass to the constructor. So new age. Okay, and the first name is going to be assigned the new first name that we pass as arguments. So you can see that in Eclipse, the attribute is highlighted as blue. Whenever you see the blue variables, that means they are attributes at the class level. Okay, and let's go on. And also, last name is assigned to new last name. And then we have the weight of the person is assigned to new weights. And also the height of the person is assigned to new height. And then we also have the nationality of the person is assigned to new nationality. Oops. Okay. So we got 6 parameters for the constructor. So this is how we define that, but how do we use them? How do we use the constructor? So now let's see how we can do it. Okay. So now if you go back to the person tester here, what we wrote before no longer compiles, simply because before we were trying to call the default constructor with no parameters over there, but now because we just changed the person class such that it has only one constructor there with 6 parameters. So as soon as you have your own constructor defined, the default constructor is no longer there. It's just gone. Okay? So now we have only one single constructor in the person class, which will take 6 parameters. That's the only version we have. Okay? Nothing else. That is why, if you go back to your person tester class, you can see that calling the constructor with just no arguments is wrong. Okay? So what we should do instead is to actually pass. Oh, let me show you how I did this. So when you say new, let me just do it again. So if you say new person and then control space, it's going to show you the version of the constructor that you can use. And the first one is the one that's going to have new age, new first name, new last name, etc. Right? So for the new age, let's say Jim 50, and the first name is Jim Davis. So weight will be kilograms. What about just 80? Height, let's say 1.82 meters. And nationality, let's say British. Okay, any questions? Up to now. So that's how we call the constructor. Okay, so now after this, because we explicitly assign each of the attributes some value that makes sense. So now if we launch the program again, you will see that Jim's age, 50, rather than 0, the default value. Jim's first name, Jim, last name, Davis, weights, 80, and heights, 1.82, nationality, British. Okay? Good? No? Which part? Huh? You cannot run it? Maybe I should help you. Maybe, yeah. Just keep typing, I guess. I remember I saw. I'm not sure if this is still the line of error you had. Okay. Again, so when you call the that should be uppercase, right? Yes. And with this one, uppercase. Okay, I'll handle that later. Yeah. No problem. Okay. So now let's go on. So that's how you create a person. Okay. You can also run a debugger to actually see. So we did it already last time. So you can also try to put a breakpoint here and step into the person constructor there and see how each attribute is assigned. Okay, that's something you can do. Let me just do another person here. Can we just copy this fragment here? Just this fragment. And then we're going to paste that like that. So now we're going to create a second person object. Let's say Jonathan. New person here. So let's say his age is 60. Let's say Jonathan Cooper. Let's say 65, 1.62 Canadian. Okay, so now we're just gonna change the print statement here. So rather than Jim's, Jonathan's. Okay, I'm gonna change for every one of them. Jonathan. I'll give you time to do this editing. Okay, and now we gotta change the context objects for every one of the method call here to be Jonathan instead. Jonathan, Jonathan here, Jonathan, Jonathan, and Jonathan. Okay, I'll give you time to complete this. Yeah, as you can see, in both fragment of code, we are trying to use the we're trying to get the values for age, first name, last name, weight, height, and nationality. The only difference is the context object is different. In the first fragment, with the context object, the context objects are all Jim. In the second fragment, the context objects are all Jonathan. So that's why the values will be different, right? Okay, let's launch the program again. You'll see that it's going to say that Jim with this attribute values, and also for Jonathan, you got different values for the, for the attributes. Okay, that's about the constructor and attributes. So let's try some methods. Okay. So remember I said today in the class, so there are three categories of methods. The first category is simply constructor, which we just did. In the second category, let's say it's called Mutator Methods. Okay, let's say so let's go back to person class, Mutator Methods. Okay, so now for Mutator Methods, let me just do a few here, and then you can do a few as an exercise. Let's say always Mutator Methods means that it is not going to return anything. You're just going to modify some attributes. Okay. Return nothing. Just change some attributes. Let's do a simple one. What about, so always void, always the case. Void as a return type, it doesn't return anything. Let's grow older. So whenever you say grow older, it's like a person grow older by 1 year. Okay. So in that case, you can say age is assigned to age plus 1. We just update the age variable in the class. Okay, this one's easy. And the second one is change nationality. Actually, we did that as well. Let me do that one for you again. So void change nationality and string new nationality. Okay, so now you can say we're going to use this parameter name, parameter value to assign to the attributes. So we're going to say nationality is assigned to new nationality. Okay, now exercises for you. Okay, I want you to define 2 Mutator methods for me. So exercise, define a, okay, let me exercise 1, define a Mutator method, let's say gain weights by which, what about I show you how to use it, and then you should really define how to, you should really figure out how the method should be defined. Define a Mutator method, okay, and which should be used as, okay, something like this. So for example, you can say Jim.gained weight by, let's say he gained another 3 kilograms of weight. That's one way of using it. Or you can say Jonathan.gained weight by, let's say he gained 1 kilograms. That's how you use it. So now how would you actually change that? Sorry, how would you define that in the class? Okay, exercise 1, exercise 2, similar. Define a Mutator method which should be used as, very similar. Let's say, also you can say Jim.lose weight by, let's say he lost 5 kilograms. Jonathan.lose weight by, let's say 2 kilograms, something like that. So every time you want to say lose or gain some weight by some amount, you have to specify that amount as a parameter. Okay, so why don't you try to declare these two methods and define them in the person class? Okay, try these, then they should be rather easy. And remember, weights are simply just double numbers. So you may want to say a person may also gain 2.5 kilograms. That also makes sense. Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes to do this simple exercise. So that'll be the first Mutator methods you define by yourself. And remember, for Mutator methods, always start the signature of the method by void, which means the method does not return anything. Are you done with at least one method? How to, for example, gain weight by a person? Okay, another 30 seconds, and now we'll go over the solution for these two exercises. Okay, let's see. Exercise number 1. How do we define the gain weight method? First of all, it's a mutator, so void. And then the name of the method, I actually already indicated how it should be used. So that's the name of the method. Gain weight by. And somehow you can see we have 3, we have 1. And I mentioned that you may also gain weight by 2.5 kilograms, right? So it can be any number. So basically, you're going to gain the weight by a certain amount. So you can say amount here. So the name of the parameter can be any name you like. Okay, so now it can be a double. Okay, so basically we're saying the person may gain weight by certain amount. Let's say if the person is currently 50, if you say gained weight by 5 kilos, in that case, after that, you will be 55. Okay, any suggestion about how we should define the body of the method here?
Weight equals n weight plus amount.
But we don't have n weights here, actually. You're certainly right to say weight is assigned to something. But what should that something be? Huh?
Weight is
Okay, and then?
plus amount.
Amount, right? Not plus 1, because here we got the amount. So you don't necessarily always gain weight just by 1 kilograms. Right? Because we got the amount here. So which means the amount can be 3, can be 5, can be 1.2, can be anything. Okay? Okay? So now, the method for lose weight by will be very similar. So we also need to, the person will also lose the weight by certain amount, which we can specify when we actually call the method. But the only difference is now we have to subtract the amount from the weights rather than add to it. Okay. So now let's just do it. Void lose weight by double amount. Okay. So now we can do weight is assigned to weight minus amount, right? And if you like, in gain weight by, so you can write another expression here if you like. You can say weights plus equal amount. Okay, that's something you can say. Or rather than saying weight equals weight minus amount, you can say weight minus equal amount. Simply because you can see the weight repeat on both sides of the assignment, right? Any questions about this? So that's about the mutator method. Okay, so now let's do some testing right away. Let's say after this initial printout of Jim, let's say Jim dot lose weights. Let's say he lose 5 kilos, and then we would like to print out his weight again after this. And then let's say after that he actually gained some weights, 10 kilos. And what should that weight be? Okay, so now let's do some printout here. You can say system.out.println. You can say Jim lost 5 kilograms. Just kg, it's easier. And then you can say Jim gained 10 kilos. So that will actually help you interpret the output from to the console. Okay, so now let's try it. Okay, so now you can imagine that somehow the lose weight, the lose weight method is going to change the attribute value of weights of Jim and increment that by 5. We're going to see that in the debugger in a moment. On the other hand, the gained weight is going to change the weights attribute value of Jim by adding 10 to it, right? So let's try the launch here. You can see now Jim's initial weights is 80. That's what we set it to be. And then after Jim lost 5 kilos, his weight becomes 75. And then after he gained just another 10 kilograms, his weight became 85. Right? It's kind of easy to follow. Let's just run the debugger quickly to see how this works. Okay. So now I would like you to put a breakpoint. Let's say over here, right before we call the method Jim.loseWeight by 5. Right before that. Okay. So now if you do run debug as Java application. Okay, you can see now we'll stop. Well, somehow you will. Okay, I can just execute line by line. Okay, so now I'm. Sorry, let me do it again. It's a bit confusing. Let me do it again. So now I would like to say run debug as Java application. Okay, so now let's say step over. Let me put the console here. You can just drag and drop, drag the console to anywhere you like. Okay, that's much easier. Okay, and then it's really annoying. Okay, we're here. Okay, so now we print out the last name of Jim, print out the weights, print out the heights, print out nationality, and now the Jim lost 5 kilos. Sorry about this mess here. Yeah, so when you run a debugger in Eclipse, you just gotta be patient when you actually got this kind of thing. Okay, so now we're here. Okay, don't lose track. So now we are at the point right before we execute this lose weight by method. So now we would like to step into it. So if you step into it, you're gonna have. So now we are in this person class here and the lose weight by method here. So now if you see the variables panel here, let me put this back here. So now you can see the object that we are talking about is Jin. You can see first name is Jin, height is 1.82, and especially we are more care about the weights, which is currently 80. And we're going to increment that by 5 because Jim is going to gain the weights by, lose the weights by, sorry, we're going to decrement that by whatever amount, which is 5. So now we're going to say weight minus equal amount. So now watch what's going to happen for the weights. If you do that, you can see now it changes to 75, right? So from 80 to 75. So that's what I said. In the class today, all the instances of the person class are going to share the same definition of every method. But when you're trying to call that, because the attribute values for each person might be different, so the effects might be different as well. So in this case, because Jim's current weight used to be 80, so now decrementing 80 by 5 will give you 75. Okay. Okay, that's about it. You can also create another instance, like say Jonathan, and then with maybe different. You can play with that. So I'm not going to do it here. So what you can do is you can say for Jonathan, you can say Jonathan dot lose weights by maybe 15, for example, and then you're going to see that the new weights for Jonathan will be also different from Jim because they are different objects. Okay, that's something you can play with. Okay, one thing that's very important I want to show you. Remember today I said that for the mutator methods, you simply cannot use it as a value. So what do I mean? So let's say this. Let's say if I say double, let's say weights is assigned to Jim dot gained weight by 5. Okay. First of all, this line here, I explained something very similar in the class today. And this line here simply would not compile. Simply would not compile. And indeed, it does not compile. Remember why? Why it doesn't compile? This line here.
It's not returning the value.
It does not return any value, right, for gain weights. Okay, let me remind you about it. So, very good. So now if you go back to person class, you can see, I think I said lose weight, gain weight. If you go to the gain weight method here, it simply return type is void, which means you cannot use any value from the method. Okay, whatever values it is going to change, it is going to change without returning them. Okay, that's why. Okay, so now if you see that, yeah, they simply say you cannot convert void to double because this method here returns void, and void simply is not compatible with double. The same idea. Okay. Okay, so this one will not compile. Let me just make a comment. This line will not compile because gained weight by does not return a value. That's why. Okay, let's do another method. So far we have done the methods with void return type. Let's do some methods which you do want to return something, and then have some exercise for you to do. So now we do the accessor method, which is going to perform computation on attribute values and return the computation result. So the return is really the keyword here. In the case of the mutator, you simply do not return any computation result. But in the case of the accessor, you have to return some results that is compatible with the return type of the method. Okay, let's do some example here. Let's say Let's do something interesting. The thing we did last time was is middle age. Let's do it again. There's a Boolean, so is middle aged. So it's simply going to say if the age of the person is larger than 50, then the person is considered as middle aged. So you can say result Boolean result is assigned to if the age of the person is strictly larger than 50. You're going to return that result. That's version 1. You can make this a little bit simpler if you prefer. Version 1, store the computation result in a variable and then return it. That's version 1. Okay, I'm going to do a version 2 for you. Version 2, return the computation result directly. How do we do that? Okay, let's just make this into comments first. Okay, now I'm going to say return age larger than 50. And this is going to work too. This is to say whatever whatever age larger than 50 is going to give to me either true or false, I'm going to return that. I didn't bother to store that result in an intermediate variable like in version 1. It's up to you, really. But sometimes if the expression is a little bit too complicated, then you may just want version 1 to store that eventually into a variable and then return that variable for the method. Okay. But for this particular case, yeah, it's really up to you which one you want to use. Okay, so now let's just do another one. Okay, this one's going to be interesting. It's not in your handouts, just came to my mind. Okay, let's say, remember I said before, the weights of the person is actually in kilograms. So now, let's say we would like to calculate what's the person's weights in pounds. If I remember correctly, 1 kilogram is roughly 2.2 pounds. Okay. Okay, so now you can say return the person's weight in pounds. Okay, and then note 1 kilograms is equal to 2.2 pounds. Okay, so now, so this is, yeah, first of all, because it's going to be an accessor, it's going to return something. So first of all, we're going to decide what's the type of the return value. Because the weight itself is a double value. So you're going to convert a double value in kilograms into a value in pounds. It's better to be double value as well, otherwise you'll lose some information for precision, right? So now the return type for this would be just double. And then you can say get. So typically in Java, if you want to define a accessor, very often you have to say get. Okay, get weight in pounds. So we don't need any extra information there. We just have to convert from the weights in kilos into the pounds. So now again, there are 2 versions for your program. Let me do version 1 only. So you can say double, let's say weight in pounds is assigned to, so whatever weights the person has, multiply by 2.2. That's the result we would like to make available to whoever is using this method here. And all we gotta do as a last step, typically, is to say return weights in pounds. Okay, and then we're done. Let's try that. So this accessor method is interesting. So let's go to person tester here. Okay. So now let's say system.out.println Jim's weight is, so now we're going to say, okay, so here we're going to say Jim.get weight in pounds. Okay, this line. I'll let you type and I'll explain. And there are two ways for you to write this. I'm going to write both ways. So here we say print line. Jim's weights is, and then we say Jim dot get weight in pounds with no arguments, plus and pounds. That's what we wrote. Okay. In this case, I don't have any other color. In this case, this is the context objects, which means we're going to apply the definition of this method here to Jim. And Jim currently has the weights, I believe it's 50. You can look it up. It's actually 50. That was something we set. So that means somehow it's going to go into the get weight in pounds method there, and then do the computation. It's first going to see what this value should be. So it's going to be 50 times 2.2, which is 110. Right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 50. Oh, sorry, that's 50. So 50 is just the age. So that's my bad. What I meant to say, okay, that would be too light, wouldn't it? Okay, 80 times 2.2, which would be 176. Okay, that will also work. Yes, sorry about that. So now, let's see how this works. First of all, let's run the program to make sure that's the case. Okay, so you can see it's 176 pounds over here. But let's see how this is executed. Okay, and then I will let you do one exercise. Okay, so now I'm going to put a breakpoint here in line 13 and run debug as Java application. Okay, somehow I don't know why it would stop there, but I'll just do it. Okay, first name, last name, Jim's weight, that's 80 kilograms. Okay, so now you can see that we got Jim.get weights in pounds. So we're going to step into that method there. If you say step into, so that's a string, you can just step over, don't worry about it. So now we can step into it again. So now we are in the get weights in pounds method in the person class. So now you can see we are dealing with Jim's object, 50 years old, and Jim, height 1.82. So now the weight currently is 80. Okay, so now if you step over, we have just calculated the result and store that in weights in pounds variable over here. Okay, it's 176 over here. And then we're going to return this value here, which is 176. Step over. So now I'm going to return this value here. So this value here will be 176. That is why you will see that 176 pounds. Okay. There's another alternative to write this if you prefer. You can also say double. Let me just write it on Eclipse so you also can document it. You can write another way. Stop the debugger. Go to Java. Another way to write this is you can say that, okay, let me just comment this out. You can say that double Jim weight in pounds, like a variable here. It is assigned to the return value of Jim.get weight in pounds. Okay, so in some way we are trying to call this method here, and because that method returns a double, so now we can capture that value and store that into this variable. And then we can now do a similar printing. Okay, let me just copy that part. So now rather than making the method call over here, we can say Jim weight in pounds, a variable. Okay, so two versions. You can choose whichever you like. I'm going to pause a little bit and let you type. Any questions up to now? I hope that's not too fast. Okay, you're done. So let's now have you do some exercise. If you go to the person class, so now exercise for you. I'll just say 1 for now. So you say define an accessor method which computes and returns the person's BMI. Okay, and note BMI is equal to the weight square weight divided by height square, I think. Okay, that's the formula. Okay. So now, for example, this is what we would expect to use the method. So we want to say something like Jim.getBMI, which is going to give us what Jim's BMI is. Also, if we say Jonathan.getBMI, what should be the BMI for him? So now notice one thing. There is no additional arguments we need to pass, simply because we know the weight and height of the person already. They are simply values of the attributes. So no extra information is needed to calculate the BMI. Okay, let's see how you can do this method here. I'll give you 2 minutes to do this. Yeah, so once you get a feel just about the mutators and accessors, so you realize defining the signatures is really not the most difficult part. The more difficult part is really about how you define the body of the methods, but we'll take step by step. Okay, so certainly I can start with the signature of the BMI method. So it is accessor, so it's going to return something. So what would you think would be the type of the getBMI method, the return type? Double? Okay, why not integer?
Because like the height and weight are double, so
they are double already, right? So if you calculate, yeah. So for example, 25.6 or something like that, yeah. So good. Double, okay, and then what else? Get BMI, the name, and then it doesn't take anything. Want to help me out here? How would you define the body of the get BMI method? Yep, I can wait for you. You can think about how to do it. Go ahead. So Mike, your solution.
BMI equals to weight.
So you mean double BMI, right?
Double, yeah.
Okay, very good. BMI assigned to?
Assigned to weight divided by height to the...
Yeah, height times height. Okay, and then?
Return.
Very good. Fantastic. Yes, that's it. Yeah, pretty easy, right? It's not too bad. So far we are doing very easy computation, like a 1 line. But later on you realize you may need several variables to help your computation. But we'll get there. No, not yet. Okay. In general, you just need as many. That's what I said. In theory, you can get up to 30 lines for your methods. But once you get beyond 30, you gotta rethink about if your methods may be unnecessarily complicated. Okay, person tester, let me go back. So now we can just do one more thing. We can say system.out.println. We can say Jim's BMI is. So now let me just do the first version there. You can say Jim.get BMI. Okay, it's going to return something. If you launch the program, Jim's BMI is something like that. Okay. Any questions up to now? So far we actually declare constructors, mutators, and accessors in the person class. Okay. So I think that's good for this week since we just started. For next Monday, I'll start giving you something that's slightly more complicated, like a more complicated method to define. But what you really need to understand is, after you define the method in the class, you certainly can instantiate the class into different instances, like a Jim, Jonathan, and for each object there, you can treat them as a context objects and call the methods on them, okay? And get the different values. Okay, let me see what else I want to say. And for the rest of the section 1, you can just read them through. They just talk about the general idea about, if you have attributes, values, they might be different from instances to instances. Okay, you can read section 1 quite easily. So I would like you to maybe spend about 10 minutes on exercise 2. And then I'll give you some hints for 5 minutes, and then we're done. And try to complete exercise 2 by next Monday. Okay, that one should be quite easy to do, but I think quite many tasks over there. Hopefully that'll keep you busy after the lab test. Okay, I'll stop the recording now, but I would like you to